trust that everyone has had a blessed week, and the fact that we're on top of the dirt and the dirt is not on top of us signifies that God is still in the blessing business. It's not because we deserve to be alive, it's just God's goodness that he allows us to be alive. I want us to continue to pray for the Evans family. They eulogized Dr. Jack Evans yesterday, and I want to continue to pray for his family. Great man, led Southwestern for a lot of years, and we need to remember the service he has given. Holidays are coming up. Be praying for us, be praying for each other. Holidays can be good times, they can be bad times. So just be praying for each other. Sometime in January, the year has gone quite quickly, but sometime in January, I will let you know when. We need to have a church meeting to kind of regroup, regather, get back on the right page, get ourselves together. We're getting a little slack in a lot of areas, and what we need to understand is leadership can only lead if you will follow. We're going to try to lead in a way that is the way Christ would have us to be and have us to do. But the church can only be as successful as its membership is willing to allow it to be. So it's not just on your leadership, it's not just on your elders, your deacons. Everybody has to pitch in and do what they need to do. I don't want to embarrass her, but I'm so glad to see Sister Rochelle. Give her some love, Sister Thomas. We're just glad to have you. Dismissing you dearly. Now let's get into our lesson for today. We've been talking about Joseph and how life has ups and downs, how things can go from good to bad to worse. And last week we saw where Joseph was a young man that was loved dearly by his father. But because he was loved dearly by his father, Joseph literally, if you read between the lines, became a little brat. You know, he was bragging about his dreams. And like we told you, some things you have to keep to yourself. And then his brothers hated him because his father loved him. And so they devised a scheme to kill him. And then somebody said, well, let's not kill him, let's just sell him. And Reuben said, well, I'll just put him in this cistern. And Reuben had the idea that he would come back and rescue him at a later time. And so when he got back, he was already gone. And so everybody thinks that Joseph is dead now. But his brothers know they sold him. How many folk know that family will sell you out if you ain't killed? It ain't always, it's not always the folk on the outside that sell you out. A lot of times your family sells you out. So we see Joseph riding high. He's this little boy that's loved. Then we see him take a downturn where his brothers hate him and they sell him. And we would view him being sold as a major setback. But what do we tell you? There are no setbacks, there are no comebacks. God has a path that all of us will follow. And those ups and downs are designed to make us who we need to be. Well, now we're going to, we see a noticeable change in direction, and it's still going down, but we'll see what we consider a major comeback. He's been sold now to Potiphar, and Potiphar is the prison guard. He's over the palace guard. Look at verse 36. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders arrived in Egypt, where they sold Joseph to Potiphar. Joseph just seems to keep getting sold out. His brothers sell him out. Now the Ishmaelites sell him out. And so they sold him to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was the captain of the guard palace. Now the text continues. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. King of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. I want to pause there for just a moment. When you are God's child, it does not matter the circumstances folk put you in. You can succeed. Yeah. It doesn't matter how bad things look. when you are God's child, when God has favored you, no matter the circumstances folk put you in, you can succeed. Amen. And even when you are not at your best, God will see to it that you succeed. There are a lot of folk wanting you to fail. There are a lot of folk, and sadly within the church, we want to see folk fail. Amen. But when God is in the plan, notice everything Joseph did was successful. And when it was successful, notice what happened. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. It does not matter what folk do to you. Keep your focus, keep God in the plan, and he'll even make your enemies. Now here's Joseph's master, making him the master of his house. How many of us know that God is able to turn these things around? I don't care what folk to do to you, if God is in the plan, folk cannot keep you down. We talked about up and down. Now Joseph was down, he was sold as a slave, but now he's on his way up again. Do you see the trajectory? Do you see the cycle he's going through? Up, down, up, down. But watch what happens here. So from the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. You heard me say it often in my messages. Don't get upset at your house because things are not going right. You may be the only reason God is blessing your house. Potiphar was not God's interest. Joseph was God's interest. So Potiphar was blessed. That's why you need to be careful who you hang around with, because God may be blessing you because of somebody you hanging around with. Mm-hmm. Like it's all about you. It may not even be about you. It may be who you're hanging around with. Amen. So what I've learned is when folk are being blessed, I want to learn what they're doing so I can be blessed. Don't start hating. Well, why he got all that? Why he got? Find out what they're doing. Amen. That God is blessing them. And I'm not talking about material stuff. I'm talking about how God blesses folk in their spiritual life. How they develop, how they go through stuff, junk and things, and still come out on top. How they still are serving God in spite of what they've been through. Amen. So the text continues. Put him in charge of all of his, for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. All right. Isn't that something? Joseph was running things so well that Potiphar said, all I got to do is go to the dinner table or go to the kitchen and tell the cook what I want to eat. I don't have to do a thing. Now with some folks running your house, you might have to watch what you eat. But he trusted Joseph. Joseph ran that house just like it was his personal property. He ran it like and that's why the Bible tells us, work as though you're working for the Lord. Whatever you do, if it's at the church, if it's on your job, work like you're working for the Lord. And I guarantee you, you will. Now that doesn't mean you're not going to have some haters. But you can't stop and be worried about the haters. You got to take your direction and go where you're going. And the biggest problem with many of us is we don't know where we want to go. Amen. We wouldn't know the destination if we saw it. You got to know where you want to go. So when you go through, as I mentioned in Hallsville, it makes no sense for me. Dr. McKinney Jones has all of these degrees And then I want to go to her class and tell her what she needs to tell me. Does that make sense? Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that. If your minister has taken time to study and put time in study, you all are getting about 2 hours out of this series, but it took me about 2 months to put it together. All right. So don't you think I ought to know something about this subject? Yeah. And I'm not saying it the most, but one of the difficulties in the church is when somebody gets up to preach, we want to make sure they're preaching what I've heard. Well, what you heard may be wrong. They may have more information than you have, so let's stop. If we went to the curriculum, and I understand, we need to make our calling and our election sure. You don't need to just listen to everything and everybody. You do need to check it out. But don't question it until you have checked it out. Amen. Don't well, I ain't never heard that. Well, there's a lot of things you haven't heard. Did you go to school? Did you go to school and you got 1 + 1 in the 2nd grade? And then you get to junior high and they start talking about algebra. That can't be true. I ain't never heard of that. We're constantly learning. The one thing about Joseph was he was constantly learning. He was constantly growing. And what I see in Joseph was everything that we called a setback, Joseph saw as a learning opportunity. Instead of calling it a setback, see it as a learning opportunity. I don't say it to boast, but Ricky Lawler, every time he sees me, he says, "Brother Payne, one thing I admire about you, if anybody knows you, they know what you've been through. But I never saw your demeanor change. I never saw you angry. I never saw you talking bad about anything." Yeah. And the reason for that is, I know where I want to go. I know I'm not perfect. I didn't tell anybody I was perfect. But the problem with that is when you spend time trying to fix what folks say something, amen, you waste a lot of time trying to fix stuff that folk don't like you anyway. Amen. That's right. So you focus on the goal ahead of you. How many of us have, and Joseph, that's not saying Joseph was a perfect man. We told you Joseph was a little arrogant, if you read between the lines. But God took him through a process where he humbled him. He was sold into slavery. But then when he took all that slavery and to get the best he could, watch how God starts to elevate him again. Success is not good for some folk. Because some folk lose their mind when they become successful. And so God has to humble them if he's going to use them. Now, if God's not in the plan, you can stay as arrogant as you want. But if God is in the plan, he has to humble us. Amen. And make us understand. The text plainly said, God blessed Potiphar's house because of who? Joseph. So that tells me Joseph understood that if I'm going to be what my dreams were, I've got to learn some things in life. Everything you go through in life is a lesson. Stop crying, Lord, why me? It's you because I got something in mind for you. It's you because if you don't go through this, you will not develop into the person I need you to be. And elders, deacons, let me tell you, preachers, let me tell you something. You cannot go through life with your feelings on your shoulders. Because your feelings going to get hurt a lot. I tell preachers, folk quit. Well, I'm going to quit. They don't like me. Well, so what? Are you leading to be liked, or are you leading to serve the Lord? So the text continues. God, what we need to understand is God always takes care of us. No matter how folks try to eliminate us, people will never have the last say. There are folks that want to eliminate you every day of your life. But let me tell you something. People don't have the last say. Yes, they may have laid you off of a job, but that's not the only job in the world. They may have taken some things or tried to take some things from you, but that's not the only things in this life. Notice the ups and downs and all through this account. Just when things start looking up again, they take a downward turn. Joseph is running the house. Potiphar just loves him like he's his own son. And he's doing all these great things, but watch what happens now. Watch what happens now. Joseph was a very handsome man and a well-built young man. Joseph was very handsome and well-built young man. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. So Joseph had found favor with the Lord.
Yes.
And not only had he found favor with the Lord, he was a good-looking young man. And how many of us know that when you are favored and you look good, somebody wants to savor the flavor of the favor?
Amen. Come on, Bridget.
And let's be honest. Let's just be honest. Let's talk. Every woman, not every woman, most women are attracted. They may not act on it, but just like all of us, let's just be honest. We act like because we get married, we go blind.
Oh, that was great.
You can look at somebody and they be attractive.
Amen.
That doesn't mean you have to have them, but you can look at somebody and say they're attractive. And so we pretend, did you see something? No, I didn't see him. And you know in your mind, you got all kind of scenarios going on. But Joseph was a good-looking young man. And so Potiphar's wife began to look at him lustfully. She said, come sleep with me. She demanded. She didn't ask. She demanded. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. Amen. Joseph said, good opportunity, but I'll lose what I got for nothing.
That's all right.
And one of the difficulties of, psychologically, what happens? See, we don't talk about this enough. Psychologically, women are attracted to men that are powerful. Women are attracted to men that are powerful. Women are attracted to men that know where they're going. Women are attracted to men who seem like providers. They're attracted to men who seem like protectors. Joseph, and on top of that, he was a good-looking man. Joseph had it going on. And Potiphar's wife said, hey, look here, you know, you running things for my husband, you need to run a few things over here.
All right.
And Joseph said, I can't do that.
Can't do it.
But she kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day. But after he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way as much as possible, one day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She grabbed him. She came in, grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, come on, sleep with me. Joseph tore himself away. But he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When she saw that she was holding his cloak, and he fled, she called out to his servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has bought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came in my room to rape me, but I screamed. And when he heard me scream, he ran out and got away. But he left his cloak behind with me. set you up. They'll make it look like what it wasn't. Folk will make it on your job, in the streets, and sadly at the church. Folk will set you up to make like what is, what ain't is. They will set you up. Joseph was running. He saw best to leave his coat. Men, take your coat with you. She kept the cloak until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. But when I screamed, he ran out, leaving his cloak with me. Poor Joseph. Here we go again. Another down cycle. Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about Joseph, how Joseph had treated him. So he took Joseph, threw him in the prison where the king's prisoners were, and there he remained. I'm going to end it right there. He goes from running everything for Potiphar's house, he goes to the prison. The tragedy of this is Joseph was well known by Potiphar. Joseph's character was known by Potiphar. But his tricky wife fooled him into thinking Joseph was something that he was not. What's your point? The closer folk are to you, the more influence they have. Just because folk are close to you does not mean they tell you the truth.
Amen.
Potiphar knew Joseph, but he didn't know his wife. And because he didn't know his wife, he allowed his wife to accuse Joseph of something that he did not. There are some folk, there are some things that happen, and people come to me and say, you know what so-and-so did? And it just sounds out of character. Well, he may have, but that just doesn't sound like him. But when folk have it in for you, they will stoop to any length to bring you down. They will lie. And see, what gets me is, you don't have to repeat everything you hear. You don't have to repeat the lie that you hear. And evidence may show that see, what gets me is, elder folks say, well, I got the facts. Facts don't always tell the truth. Do I need to explain that? Folks are just the facts. Facts don't always tell the truth. Do you remember on the ship, the disciples were in a storm? That was a fact. Jesus was asleep. That was a fact. They came down and asked Jesus, don't you care that we perish? The fact that he was asleep did not mean he did not care. The fact is, a storm of that magnitude would have destroyed them. That was the fact. But the truth was on the ship. Fact and truth don't have to be the same thing. The truth is they were in a storm. I mean, the fact is they were in a storm, but the truth was they were surviving. So I don't worry, folks, I got the facts. I know you got the facts, but what's the truth? What does the truth say? And so, here we see Joseph, again, in a precarious situation. The first time, it was because he was running his mouth. The second time, he's doing the best he can. What's your point? There's some problems you're going to create, and there's some problems that's just going to be created for you. But the process is, okay, now he's in prison. He's gone from the pit to Potiphar's house to the prison. Up, down, up, down. I'm sure that was discouraging to Joseph, to do everything he can, and then his master not trust him. I'm so glad God knows us. And what other folks say about us to him does not matter. He knows us. He knows our hearts. He knows who we are. And the thing about God is God can work through some stuff you can't. God can deal with some folks stuff you can't deal with. Because the problem is you trying to fix other folks' stuff when your stuff ain't fixed. God sent his only begotten Son to die on the cross that we might have a right to the tree of life. And whoever believes him should not perish but have eternal life. And that's, the Bible says, for God so loved the world. In verse 16. But seldom do we deal with verse 17. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but through the world might be saved. It bothers me. People are talking about, well, you need to tell folks they're going to hell. That's not your job. You need to tell them they're coming to Jesus. They need to come to Jesus. God will decide, because if Jesus came and he didn't come to condemn the world, where do we get more authority than Jesus?
That's all right.
If he didn't come to condemn the world, why are we preaching all these sermons condemning? You ought to be telling them how to get to Jesus. And if they are condemned, so we need to believe that he did that. And then we need to repent of our sins, and we need to confess Christ to be the sweetest name on earth. Then we need to go into water grace baptism, become a Christian, nothing more, nothing less. And once you go down and come up, get ready for some more ups and downs. Because that's the way life is. Don't ever get discouraged because you're in a down cycle. Because God is never going to leave you always in a down cycle. When you're swimming, I don't know how many of you have swum, that done some swimming, but when you dive, do you know the way you dive helps you come up? Because before you hit the bottom, you make that turn up, and you come up just as fast as you went in. That's the way life is. When you hit a down slope, adjust so that before you hit the bottom, now don't hit the bottom, before you hit the bottom, you make that adjustment with God, and he will, before you know, your head's popping up in the air. I'm a living witness that whatever you go through, if you trust God, you don't have to be your best. Just trust God. And he will bring you. Do I have a witness? Anybody been down? And folk had counted you out? But God brings you. Next week, if the Lord says, and say, well, it won't be next week because I'll be out. But when we get back to this series, we want to see where he goes to prison. And even in prison, Joseph is somebody.
Amen.
It doesn't matter where God allows you to go. You can just go in. Have you ever gone to folk places and seen folk and say, they just don't seem like they ought to be here? They're here, but they just don't seem like they ought to be here. And that can go both ways. Because we got... we got somebody in the White House that seems like he ought not be here. And I'm saying this because, and I'm going to let you go. Not only does God give power, but there are other forces, evil, that give power. But God's power. And not only that, but God says he puts everybody in place for a reason.
Right.
Now, I don't care for what we're going through. I need to pause for this. I don't care for what we're going through, but God has him in the White House for a reason. But he also only has him there for a season. And so we got to find out what the reason, and I firmly believe the reason he is that. Well, what's this got to do with it? Because a lot of us are going through a lot of junk and stuff and things because of our political situation right now. Some of us are down, some of us are up. But I tell folk all the time, it doesn't matter who's in the White House, it doesn't affect us that much anyway. It affects you all, but it doesn't affect us as African Americans because our life doesn't change a whole lot. But what it did is, it revealed where this country really is. We are pretending that we're one country, we're one nation, but by him being elected, and it has revealed that we're not as up as we thought we were. We're not as righteous as we pretended to be. And so what we're going to do with this downturn as Christians is we're going to redirect this thing. We're going to do some praying. If we're going to be the church of Christ, we're going to have to be the church of Christ. We're going to have to stop all this division, all this fighting, because we're in a country divided. We don't need to be in a church that's divided.
Amen.
I've talked to you long enough. Talked to you long enough. Come and give your life to Jesus as we together stand and sing our song of invitation. We love you and God bless you. Be standing.